Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's episode number 94 of the Audible Farm Podcast. This episode's brought to you by Couchtown Coffee. Couchtown Coffee is roasted right here in Iowa, and all of the orders are made specifically for whoever ordered them. That's pretty cool if you consider the fact that they're not just roasting hundreds of pounds of coffee and hoping and waiting for people to buy them. No, if you make an order, they roast their coffee especially for you and ship it to your house. So this is not big batch. This is made to order coffee. It guarantees freshness. It's probably my favorite coffee I've ever had. So if you guys want to check it out, go to couchtowncoffee.com, find a coffee you like, and make an order. You know what else is really cool? Couchtown Coffee supports live music. So if you guys want to make an order this week, you can save 20% on your order. That's 20%. And all you got to do is enter the code word 9. The code word this week to save 20% is 9. And like I said, that's 20% off your order. Why? Because Couchtown Coffee is that awesome. And why is the code word 9? Well, this week I'm sitting down with Joe Symonds and Clint Henry, the bassist and drummer, respectively, in the band 9 Years Gone. I have seen these guys. In the podcast, I was like, I think I've seen these guys before. I swear I have. And then we figured it all out. Like in the podcast, I saw them open up for Texas Hippie Coalition at Lefties in Des Moines last year. And great band. I mean, there's not too many rock and roll bands out there that can teeter anywhere from like almost a grunge style all the way through like heavier rock styles. We discuss all of the things that make up this band as far as influences, how long they've been together, different shows they've played at, different lineups and different things like that. This band has been pretty steadfast over the years. They did take a short break to just kind of recharge their batteries. And we discussed that in the podcast too. There's a fun story with that actually, and how the band got its name and everything. So if you guys want to, really check out some cool stuff, check out this podcast episode. I know for a fact they've got some recordings that they're working on. So there will be some recordings available to be streaming pretty much anywhere coming up soon from 9 Years Gone. So check it out. I got to say huge shout out to Joe and Clint for sitting down with me. And hey, enjoy this episode. It's number 94 with Joe Symonds and Clint Henry of 9 Years Gone.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
So today I'm sitting down with a couple of members from 9 Years Gone. I don't know if I've actually seen you guys live. I think I've seen you once at Lefties before, but search as I may through my catalog of all the shows I've been to recently, I can't guarantee that. So I'm pretty sure I've seen you guys live, but today I'm sitting down with Joe Symonds, and I almost pronounced that wrong, but it's Joe Symonds and Clint Henry. You guys are the rhythm section, the bass and the drums on the band, right?
Yep.
Yeah, man.
We're the guys.
You're what?
We're the guys stuck in the back, yeah.
Stuck in the back. I think that's the best place to be, actually. You're holding down the fort back there. I always like to think of the concept of a dog musher. The dog musher leads from the back.
Yep, exactly.
So there you go. I mean, how did you two guys end up meeting each other? And did you guys meet each other and start the band, or did you know each other from childhood, or how did that all work out?
Well, we became friends. We've been friends basically our entire lives. We've been friends since we were, probably 7, 8 years old?
Yeah.
Something like that. And then our guitarist that's not on, Jeff Cummings, we've all been friends basically our entire lives. And I don't know, we kind of had the idea to start playing when we were, I don't even know if we were in junior high yet.
I think it was about 6th grade. So, and this would have been 1990-ish.
Oh, cool.
91.
Yeah. So we played our first show, and right around that time, I don't know, probably 91 or 90, I don't know. And I remember it was a friend of ours. It was I don't remember which birthday, what year it was, but we played his garage, and we had those old amps that you'd pick up at, on the JCPenney catalog.
Yeah.
And everything sounded horrible, and I'd never tuned a drum in my life, but we got through it anyway.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. So you guys were talking about playing your first show when you were like in junior high or earlier?
It was probably about 7th grade. Yeah.
Jeez, that is insanity. I mean, as many people as I've talked to, I don't know too many people that played their first show in like, 7th grade or something. That's pretty wild.
And this is Southwest Iowa, Bedford, where we grew up. So it's a pretty small town.
Yeah, I mean, and you guys did this all, like you said, early 90s. This would have been before all of what I would call the cheat sheets are available everywhere. Like on the internet, you could find anything you want, any piece of gear you want, learn how to tune your drums or whatever. You learn how to play a song. It doesn't matter. You can learn it all. And like back then, you didn't really have that availability.
No.
So how did you guys go about like picking songs? Did you write songs yourself, or did you cover a couple tunes, or how did you go about doing that?
It was mostly covers. It were really, in the early days, it was all covers. A lot of Metallica, Pearl Jam, Nirvana. Really started kind of with Poison. Don't want to say that probably on air, but yeah.
No. It's totally cool.
There was a time when STP and Pearl Jam and Nirvana, they were still cool. Like they were new.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we covered. I remember specifically that we had a lot of those types of songs, Metallica, because we played our 8th grade graduation.
Yeah,
we played a couple hours.
Wow.
Yeah, we actually played that show, and it was we played about an hour and a half, 2 hours solid. Yeah, so
that's wild. I'm just thinking I didn't start playing until I was like in 9th grade or so, and I mean I know how good I was when I first started playing, and I wasn't playing no Metallica, That's just
I didn't say we played it well. But we played it.
Well, I mean, still kudos to you guys just for having the guts to get up there at a young age and do it. I mean, that was probably one of my biggest hindrances growing up, was the fact that like even though you're cool because you're playing guitar, you're still kind of like an outcast because you're playing guitar. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like
we all kind of had some high school band background as well, so I think that kind of helped. But
yeah, like do you guys play like instruments in the marching band or in the like a concert band or something like that?
Yeah, I think we started playing, if I remember right, we started playing some sort of instrument in like 3rd grade. They came around and we picked an instrument, and I played the trombone and the tuba. Nice. Initially.
And I played saxophone.
Oh man, that's awesome. I mean, those are 2 stellar instruments. I played trumpet growing up, so we the 3 of us could have pretty much started our own band right now if we just wanted. Got a ska section going on.
There you go.
Jeff, our guitarist, he played trumpet, I believe.
Oh, there you go. You already got it rounded off. You don't need me.
But then once we got closer to junior high, so like our band program kind of ended from probably 4th grade to junior high.
Yeah, there wasn't really much going on.
But then we also we're in band in junior high, and we did the marching band things. We did jazz band, concert band.
Yeah.
And at that time, Clint played percussion. I played tuba. And I think Jeff still played trumpet.
Yeah, I'd switched over from trombone to drums when we got this concept of came up with this thing of being in a band. And I believe the band name was Fubar.
Yes.
At the time. And so I switched over to drums because I'm like, no one else is going to play drums. Pretty sure. So I switched over to that, and then that's kind of stuck for the rest of the time we were in school, or the rest of the time we were in band. But
do you think that you guys like chose your instruments based on necessity, or like I feel like some of that is when kids first get together and we're like, we're gonna make a band, and it's like you're gonna play the bass and we're gonna play the guitar and you're gonna play the drums. Everyone just go buy an instrument. Let's figure it out. Is that like kind of what you guys did, or did you have any sort of lessons or like older people in your school kind of helping you out or anything like that?
So as far as the drums go, I definitely picked it out because I didn't think anybody else would play it. And there was an old man by the name of Gary Jones, who was this old man that always smelled like Camel cigarettes and I don't know what else. He was a really old, skinny guy, and he used to play jazz for money. Like he actually did it, he'd play shows. And he would come around and he'd come around with a cart and this old organ. I think it's the organ that everybody wants, that little black organ. He'd come around and he'd have us sing these songs. And he asked us if he wanted. He goes, "Well, I can kind of play the drums if you guys want me to teach it." There was 4 or 5 of us that went down, and I remember we learned on this old green Ludwig. It was an old green Ludwig, and it was a jazz style with big, cymbals that are completely, rusted over or whatever, with has all that buildup. I started playing those in that auditorium for a long time, and then it finally just kind of, stuck. I just kept with it. So
they had to talk me into playing bass.
And why is that? Why is that?
Well, they had to talk me into just in the band in general. It's Jeff and Clint's. It was their brainstorm, and they needed a bass player, and I remember sitting in Clint's driveway and finally talking me into it, and then so I was just like, well, I guess it's the bass that I'm going to be playing.
There you go.
And Jeff it was a natural fit for him to play guitar and sing because he had been doing that already. If I remember correctly, when we were young, elementary and stuff, he was coming up to the fair and I think doing little performances and stuff. So it was a natural fit for him to do that. So it was kind of like, who's going to do the rest of the stuff?
Yeah, he used to do the talent show at the Iowa State Fair when he was very young.
Jeez. So you guys are stacked full of from a young age, each one of you guys has been very musically active. It sounds like it's not like you're just random guys that picked up instruments and were like, I think I can do this. You've actually have like a very deep background involved, not just in playing your own specific instruments.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty cool. How did you guys end up like choosing the types of bands that would influence you the most? I mean, obviously I'm going to just garnish a guess to say that it was what was popular at the time.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that it was what was popular at the time. And I think it was what was popular at the time. And then I remember your older brother was always like Bad Company, Rush.
Yeah.
And we really liked those. Not so much Rush until later.
I've always liked Rush for the record.
Yeah, see, it's always been, and I wasn't quite there yet, and then I remember my dad was always into Zeppelin and the Doors and the Beatles and that kind of thing. So I always kind of went that route with influence from my dad, especially with John Bonham and everything. I always listened to him. So I mean, it's pretty broad range. And I know Jeff is more of a kind of a blues, classic rock kind of guy. So
yeah, I mean, as far as that all goes, like I totally get the whole like picking up what's around you and using it as like your influence. Like I grew up listening to a lot of like pop punk and stuff like that. And then in my like later teen years, I started listening to a lot of like 80s metal. So those are like probably my 2 biggest influences. Now I play a lot more blues than anything, but it is just kind of like who was listening to what around you and how they influence you. Because the drummer in the band I'm in pretty much force fed me metal when I was in high school, and it was like, oh man, this stuff's good, and then you start to feel it kind of bleed into your playing abilities and such. But
yeah, Metallica was real big for me in the early 90s. I actually got into them on the And Justice for All record.
Nice.
And
yeah, I mean,
they
go for it.
They helped me deal with quite a bit as a junior high teenager,
Oh yeah.
It was a thing for me.
Yeah, I totally feel you. Like the metal music was that nice outlet. I could listen to music that was yelling and then I didn't have to do any yelling, I guess,
Right.
It kind of helped.
And then my brothers were big classic rock guys. And I mean, I grew up listening to all that too. So
I think having older brothers is probably one of the best influences you can have too, because it gives you like a bigger scope of what music is out there. Because everyone kind of locks into what was popular in their teenage years and never really moves too far from it. And
right.
If you have like older siblings or even parents that are like, oh, I mean, I know you like Metallica, but if you listen to much Led Zeppelin, and then you're like, oh, holy cow, this is actually pretty darn good stuff. I never would have listened to it had somebody not insisted that I listen to it, which is kind of one of those things that it almost comes by chance, as far as who the people are and what they get to listen to.
Yep.
Yeah. Did I saw online that you guys had a show booked coming up and it was postponed. You guys were going to play that Flotsam and Jetsam show that was going to be was it at Vaudeville Muse?
Yeah.
And did that get postponed or canceled?
It's actually been rescheduled. I don't know if it's Vaudeville's announced it, but according to the Flotsam website, it's next year. I can't remember the date off the top of my head, but it's next May.
Yeah, when I had originally talked to Joe a little bit and saw that you guys were on that show and was just like, oh, this show is going to be killer, because it was Flotsam and Jetsam, Dark Mirror, 9 Years Gone, which is you guys, Tyrant Souls, and Sorted. And I've seen Dark Mirror and Tyrant Souls many times before, and like I said, I think I've seen you guys play once, maybe even with Tyrant Souls, if I'm not mistaken.
We played with Tyrant Souls 3 times, I believe now.
Yeah, and you guys have very complementary styles.
Yeah.
I mean,
our style it's nice. It kind of fits in with just about every, you can go pretty hard rock to, a little bit lighter rock. We're still going to fit in. And so it's kind of a nice fit for both bands, and we get to play shows together, get to know each other, and they're a great group of guys.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's probably one of the things when I first started checking some of your stuff out on YouTube, I was like, oh man, you guys, you don't sound like every other band. And that's not to say every band out there sounds the same, but there's not too many like classic rock sounding bands out there anymore. And you guys are pretty much right in the meaty part of that curve.
Right.
And
we can go.
Go for it.
I mean, we have some slower, lighter songs, I guess. You can't see my air quotes, but, just that's so we could fit in with a not quite so heavy crowd. But then, we got the stuff, that you've seen, that can fit in with that heavier type crowd as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's probably one of the coolest parts about watching bands play or getting put on bills with bands you don't know, because not everybody has the same influence, so that like leads to, I guess, just being able to see what else is out there. And that's not something when I first started playing shows and going to a lot of shows. It's not something I was like initially, it didn't even cross my mind. It was just like, well, there's metal, and it's heavy and sometimes people yell. And then there's like punk music, and that's pretty much like the 2 broadest genres that are like in Iowa as far as playing like I don't want to say pub shows or like club shows, but that seems to be about everything that's out there. And you guys aren't just relying on like super heavy distortion and people yelling or anything like that. You guys are actually out there crafting something that's a little bit different, which I think is one of the coolest things about you guys as a band.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And it's one of those things where when you've done it for longer than most of the people you're on stage or that you're sharing a stage with that night have been alive, you kind of have time to hone things in and kind of work on, actually kind of, in a sense, self-producing the song and giving it those kind of things you're looking for, those things that you hear that kind of attracts you to a song. So it's something that we try to work on. We try to spend a lot of time building the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's like pretty deceptive too, like as far as you go out and watch shows and there's people of like all ages, and it doesn't really like matter the age because the talent level also spans so much as far, even influences do. But like, I would have never thought you guys were a band that started in the early 90s, but you guys said you were playing like in junior high. So you guys have been playing, I mean, you've got a lot of years under your belt. I mean, probably half your lives at least you've been playing, your instruments.
Yeah. Well, we played shows when we were all the way through high school, and then we just kind of practiced, and then you'd moved, I think.
Well, so I actually took time off from, I don't know, maybe junior high school until about 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't touch an instrument that entire time. So I left to pursue other stupid juvenile things, like football, girls, partying.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so they got another bassist who was 4 years younger than us.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
And he was with the band. He unfortunately passed away about 3.5 years ago, give or take.
Yeah.
And then there was we were playing the Taylor County Fair, and they asked me to play a couple songs that we used to play, like Knocking on Heaven's Door and Porch from Pearl Jam. And sat down and jammed for the first time in 20 plus years. And it felt like we were, in seventh grade again.
So you guys,
And,
so you took like maybe the most of like the 2000s, like the early 2000s off then as a band?
well, I was off from probably 95, 96 until
recently.
2017.
Okay. Oh, dang.
But the band was still together with that other bassist,
All right.
James Wilson. And they actually, from 2001 and 2010, were in a hiatus, which 9 years, hence the name 9 Years Gone, when they come back together.
Yeah, after Joe had taken off, we ended up going to a studio and recording. We were just right out of high school.
1998.
Yeah, and we went to a studio, recorded an album. It was more just for us to see what it was like. We went down to Skidmore, Missouri,
Mm-hmm.
and recorded an album. And then Jeff and I, just him and I had done it. And we're coming back and we're listening to it. We're like, this isn't really what we thought it was going to be. I think we need to work a little harder. And anyway, James was he was a younger guy. So he was probably like a freshman or a sophomore, but he was a natural just musician. And he's a friend of ours, a friend of the family, and all that kind of stuff. So he had picked that CD up. Somehow he had gotten a hold of it. Must have given his mom a copy. I'm not really sure how he got a hold of it, but he comes up one day and says, "I want to play with you guys." And we're like, we do even know any of the songs, and he just starts playing them all.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah, and he was like, I don't know, 15, if that. And so we shared a case of beer and jammed all night. He played with us for quite a while, and then after we had moved up to Iowa State, like I said, that's kind of where the 9 years thing starts, where we played our instruments and we practiced and we'd mess around, but we didn't play shows and we weren't really considered a band.
Mm-hmm.
And again, until 2009, 2010, I think is when we played our first show as 9 Years Gone.
That's really cool. I guess I just scrolled down to your website where it says Our Story, and like a decent chunk of what we talked about is actually like in that paragraph. I guess I could have, read that and streamlined a little bit of this, but it would have, it wouldn't have gotten all this cool conversation. I didn't know the band name 9 Years Gone actually had like a reasoning behind it, and that's actually really cool. I'm in a punk band named Three Finger Betty, and there's like no rhyme or reason for why it's named that. I mean, it's just like an imagery that somebody had created, and they're like, "This sounds funny" or whatever. So we just went with it. I mean, there's backstories that get bantered about, but we change them, every time somebody asks. So there's like not a real story. But you guys have a real cool one where you guys were together. I mean, Joe took off and did his own thing for a while. You got a new bassist, and then you took that hiatus for 9 years, and you were gone for 9 years. Hence the name 9 Years Gone. I love it. It's really cool.
Yeah, it makes a good story.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, like, Joe, as far as you're concerned, I played in a band in high school, and we played like punk music and things like that. And after high school, the drummer ended up going to a different band, and he actually plays in Dark Mirror. It's the drummer in Dark Mirror, Clint Blumker, and that's the drummer in the band I play in now as well, Three Finger Betty. And I just like, he left and joined a different band, and it's like, well, now I live in small town Iowa with no drummer and nothing to do, and I just kind of quit playing because I didn't really have the drive, and there was no one around to really play with or anything like that. So I just I kind of quit for maybe about 10 years. And, it was just a stroke of luck that I had a whole bunch of free time, and I was like, well, I'll just pick the guitar up and finally get good at it for once, and got a little bit better. Yeah. And it's that sometimes those breaks are actually necessary to kind of recharge the batteries and let you know what was really important, in the first place.
Well, I think that's the thing is we kind of talk about it as, kind of life just gets in the way. And there was kind of a perfect storm of things where things had just kind of worked out as far as timing goes. And I'd gotten a call from Jeff. It was over Christmas. I think it was probably in 2009. And he wanted to get together and just play. And of course, we hadn't done it in almost 9 years at that point. And wanted to record a song, and at the time I had an electric kit that I was just kind of messing around with. I had an acoustic kit as well, So I brought it back, and we ran. I don't remember how we got it onto a computer, but we did. And we recorded a song the first time. We wrote a song the first time we've been together in almost 9 years. And that song is actually, it's unedited on MySpace.
Oh, wow.
Somewhere. Yeah, it's not great the way it's mixed and everything, but it's not too shabby. So, immediately we just kind of took right off into sort of writing things, and then just never really skipped a beat. And then we just started playing, and the thing was, we started practicing, and James had come back he had been over doing some training in the military, and he had recently moved back to the area. We were all in separate spots, but we could kind of make it work, and we had been practicing, and we were going to start doing some shows, and we could not think of a name. And we kept coming up with that stuff, and then 9 years gone kind of came out, and was like, I haven't played in 9 years, let's try that, this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. And like I said, it's not that other bands don't have a reasoning for their name. I feel like some bands take a stab at a name and try and like pigeonhole themselves into the genre by using their name.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to pick on anyone, but metal bands are always, we got to have the most metal name ever out there, and like I said, I'm not trying to pick on metal bands at all. I love them. I played guitar in Unity for a few years, and we're kind of on a hiatus as of now, but it's just nice to hear that there's actually a rhyme and a reason, it sounds like, for almost everything you guys have done here. And it's everything happened for a reason, and it actually worked out as it did. And you guys are all still playing, and you're still a band. I would think that bands that change lineups, it's sometimes it's tough to keep going. Had James Wilson never contacted you as being the new bass player, what would have happened to the band, do you think?
Yeah, nothing probably. I don't know if we've ever gotten started again, because once we started playing, and we would kind of talk about it with you, and you kind of got those, man, I wish doing that again. And we thought, well, can we have two bass players? What can we do? So, if you had to contact us, you had to come back, and everything just kind of worked out as a perfect storm. And it's something that we really miss. And now if we don't do it, we kind of start getting, it's kind of like getting hangry. You got to play, or you get angry about stuff, So it's like we got to get together, and we write songs, and we don't do much covers anymore. We use mostly just originals, and so it's been a blessing for all of us. I think it's a good getaway for all of us, and it's just a hobby that we really enjoy. And coming up to Des Moines and playing more has been a really good experience for us, and we like the new exposure and just getting to play in front of people and this is something that maybe bands up here in a city area, I guess I should say, versus the rural area that we were always in. That's a lot different. The money can be pretty good back where we're from playing. You're doing covers, and even if you're not, you can still get by. But it's nice to come up here to go to a show where people are going to the show to see bands, and they want to see local bands. They don't want to hear Achy Breaky Heart or some Poison song or whatever, for the 5,000. They don't want to hear, those songs. They want to hear a new band. And it's really exciting to have people come up, and they're there to see a show, and it's just cool because that's not something that we're used to.
Yeah, that's one of those goofy double-edged swords. I always thought, I'm from rural Iowa, I'm from northern Iowa, and it's one of those things where around here you can play covers and get away with playing some of your originals here and there, and the payouts are pretty good. But if you go to the bigger cities where there's tons of bands, maybe not fighting each other for spots, but most of the time it seems like every weekend there's plenty of bands always playing everywhere, so it's really saturated in the bigger cities, so the payouts aren't always as good depending on where you're at and what you're playing. But it's like I said, it's that weird double-edged sword where if you play at a smaller town bar, you might just be dressing, you're just kind of sitting there in the corner and people are kind of whatever, maybe listening to you, maybe not. If you're playing a cover band, you're more or less just a really badass jukebox that's in the corner, and sometimes people just go to the bar to drink. But, we talked about lefties earlier. People go to lefties to hear music, and that's probably the coolest thing is showing up there and finding a bunch of people that are, like you said, they're not there just to hear Achy Breaky Heart. They're there to hear what other people have done. And it's really one of those things where I think it's a little bit more fulfilling, even if the room is emptier and or the payout might not be as well. It's definitely a little bit more fulfilling on like a, I don't want to say spiritual end, but it, it just makes you feel really good.
Yeah, like when you see people you don't even know, you see them bobbing their heads to your songs. It's pretty good feeling, even if it is only, 20 people in the crowd. You see half of them bobbing their heads to your songs. It makes you feel pretty good and like you're doing things right.
Oh yeah, there's nothing better than like the tiniest bit of like fan response is the greatest thing ever for some reason. Like you said, like just bobbing their head. If they're standing out there bobbing their head, taking a drink, it's like these people are digging it, and that's something you don't always get, at a small town bar, because like I said, not everybody's there to hear the music. So it's that weird double-edged sword. I always think about that too, because I've played just enough of both shows to realize that it's two different beasts,
Yeah.
And where we're from, the town that we played a lot in, or I guess the area, because we didn't just play in the town. We played a multiple, like a lot of different kinds of shows, like flag rallies, we played town festivals or the county fair and things like that. And depending on what it is, we might throw some covers in. Pretty well decided that we're not going to really do covers. We just kind of got tired of playing them, and we have so many songs of our own. We've been doing it so long, you kind of accumulate songs after a while. It's like we shouldn't play them, and we straight up tell people that are going to hire us, that are going to pay us, that we really don't do covers. So if that's a problem, don't hire us.
Oh yeah.
And the people around in that area, they don't care. It's just shocking, but we just tell them we don't do covers. This is what we do. We might throw a couple in there,
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, we just don't. We're not going to practice them. If we get nut beers on us and we'll play Mustang Sally, we'll play it.
I think that's some of the funnest part about like having a giant lineup of original tunes and then stacking in a cover here or there. Like if you can play for 2 hours straight and you play two covers, whoever's listening is going to go absolutely bananas for the covers. And I think it's like that's one of the funnest thing ever, where like I play in a punk band, but every now and then it's like, we're going to play Jailbreak by Thin Lizzy just for fun. And we like, we'll play it and people are like, what the heck? This is insanity, and it's always one of those songs. It doesn't seem to fit too well, but everybody knows it and it works out really well. And, sometimes playing a little bit of covers in with some of your original tunes kind of shows, the width of the band, like how far you guys can actually go. Cause if you write your own music, usually it kind of stays in the same wheelhouse sort of. But if you play like a cover, obviously it's not something that anyone in the band wrote. So it says, we can actually go this far as a band. We're actually more talented than the scope we're showing you today. We can go even farther and beyond that. And it gives everyone like a little glimpse of how much fun it actually can be.
Yep.
Well, I think back in the early days of, back several years ago when we really were playing, like I said, a lot of bike rallies and these different things. We would play, or we just playing these bars. We'd have to play for 3 or 4 hours, and playing for 30 minutes is not long enough. 4 hours is too long.
Yeah.
It never seems to turn out that way, but you kind of had to mix everything up because there was so much content that we were going through, and there were times when we would play back-to-back days, and so we had to try to have different stuff for this long period of time. So we'd have different people come up. So there's some very, very talented musicians back home who play different instruments, steel guitar and whatnot, fiddle. We'll throw some of that in there. And our guitarist, his dad, is a very good singer and keyboardist. So we'll jump in with him and do a lot of different songs. We try to be as diverse as we can, but we've really boiled it down to the songs we can play. And that's pretty much what we're going to play at this point. It's kind of nice to have, I guess, weight off your shoulders where you have to constantly try to keep up with covers.
Yeah, we've all, we've put in our dues for covers, so we're kind of strict on like, all right, we want to play our own stuff. We're old enough now, and we all have our own careers now where trying to make it as a band isn't our. We don't have to make it to eat, essentially.
Yeah,
and I think
so. We can be a little more picky with what we want to do.
Yeah.
And I think that it's one thing that we never and we don't now. I don't think we really ever have. It's always been about what we want to do and how we want to do it, within reason, obviously. But it's not something we write a song. We don't write a song for it. Just comes together. It doesn't, and there's no intent of what it's supposed to sound like or what our music is supposed to sound like. I don't even know how you do that. Like, none of us know even like if you say, well, we want to sound like, and I know some younger kids and stuff in the band, we want to sound like. We want to sound like Metallica. We want to sound like this band because we know that everybody likes it. They sound cool. We love it. We don't even, it just comes out, whatever comes out, it is what it is. That's what we got. So.
Yeah. I mean, there's a benefit to that though, too. Cause sometimes I feel like if you aim too directly at something, it like pigeonholes the band, almost. It's just like you said, if you want to make a band that sounds like Metallica, it's not impossible, but unfortunately you're just going to be a band that sounds like Metallica. That's the thing, it's Metallica Light, or you're just the Metallica Junior, or something like that, and that's something that I mean, there's not too many bands that do that, because I feel like a lot of people have a wider scope, especially musicians have like a wider scope of what they like, so they're not just gonna like I said, just pigeonhole on one band and be like, I gotta sound exactly like something like this, but it's. Like you said, I mean, if you put you guys all together, I'm sure that your musical directives are all like widely spanned enough that if you put it all in a can and spun it around, out comes 9 Years Gone, because it's, like I said, it's not like you guys are all aiming at something and you guys all have different influences and things, so it's going to come out as something new.
Yep.
Yeah, that's something that we kind of talk about when we are putting things together. It's does this bass tone go with the song? Doesn't matter. Whatever you like, that's what you like. If it doesn't work, and we can adjust it, and you still like it, okay, fair enough. But generally speaking, it's whatever sound you want to go with. That's the sound you go with, and we'll make it work. And I mean, that's kind of Jeff has his sound. He's got that classic Marshall Gibson sound, and I don't even know what my sound is, but. Just I try to tune my drums and not buy cheap cymbals. That's like the real right. So. But yeah, whatever comes out, comes out. It's worked so far, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's also the benefit of being around people that you're comfortable with, though, too. Because like you said, if somebody has the question like, does this sound good enough, or does this sound whatever, I mean, it's like, does it sound good to you? Is that what you want to play? Like, if you don't think it sounds good, we can change it. Otherwise, like, just keep doing whatever you're doing. That's actually a really good place to be in with a band. I mean, you can challenge each other to try new things here and there, but nobody's ever kind of like harping on anyone else, or like climbing on anyone else to be like, hey, you gotta sound like this, like. Your bass has to sound like it's an Ampeg going through an 8x10, it's like, there's none of that people are driving, the other band members, like I said, back into that pigeonholed area. I play in the punk band, Three Finger Betty, but we just call it punk because it's like, what else is it? I don't know, because we play like rock kind of stuff, but it's like slightly metal influenced and et cetera, et cetera. And that's like the benefit of, having all of us. We kind of all get along so well where it's just like, does this make the song too heavy? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Like, should you put pinch harmonics in punk songs? Like, I don't care. Put them in there, and like, that's kind of how everyone just rolls with it. And we're just like, yeah, sounds good. Like, cause no one else is doing this. So why not, and that's what makes a band all original. And I think that's one of those testaments to you guys as far as a band for having stuck together so long. I mean, even though, like Joe left the band for a little bit and came back, but I mean, you guys are all still great friends. You all still hang out with each other. You can get along. You guys have been getting along since the early 90s. So, I mean, that's a huge testament to be able to even just make music with somebody for that long. Because, like I said, like there's very few bands out there that can even do that are established and touring and things like that.
Yeah, it's we're starting to feel old. It's been a while. And I think looking at it as, everybody's, and I think as we've grown up, I think if we'd have tried to do this as much as we have done it in the last 10 years, if we tried to do it, practicing, we were very diligent about it. Especially the first 3 or 4 years, there was a lot of driving back and forth to Southwest Iowa. James, the bassist, he was down in Missouri. He was on St. Joe for a while. And so there was a lot of traveling back to Bedford, Iowa, which is like where we did most of our practicing and some of our recordings, or the kind of studio down there and up here in St. Charles. But So we spent a lot of time just going back and forth and putting that time into practice. I mean, practicing for hours and hours to play, our first show, and then realizing, and then go back, and we kind of always tried to record things, even if it was a bad recording, but just so we could go back and listen to it and fix it, and same process, and everything goes through. It's over time, it's really helped. And you learn to deal with everybody, because it's like having another wife, or something.
It's when we get together and jam. So pre-COVID, we'd go down to Bedford, which is about an hour and 45 minutes drive for both Clint and I, and Jeff lives in Bedford. And so, with families and all that stuff, we'd get together once, maybe twice a month, but it would be a 10-hour jam session.
Oh, wow. Make it worth your while.
Yeah. I mean, we'd have some beers, and, we'd grill some food and everything. So there'd be some breaks in there, but now that with the COVID stuff going on, we're solely focusing on recording, and we're doing that in St. Charles at Clint's house. He's built a studio in his house. So now Jeff has to do all the driving. And yeah, it's a nice break.
I'm sure he likes it.
Oh man, give him a taste of your guys' medicine. This is what we've been dealing with. You got to deal with it, Jeff.
But it's really made us focus on the songs. What can we add here? What would make the solo better? What would drive the bass and the kick drum harder here? Kind of things like that, to really put out a good quality song, and really break down the songs because we'll just focus on one song now instead of just a jam session.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, we're on this one song, we're going to record it as many times as possible till it's good enough to get it mixed and mastered.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, what we'll do is we all get in a room together, and we've already played the songs for years. So, but it's amazing though. We can play a song for 10 years over and over and over again. And then you put a microphone in front of a drum set, or at least for me anyway, and I can't play it right once.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you know what that is. And so we'll just play it until we kind of get that bass track, and then we'll go back and cut everything in. And then once we get everything the way we want it, that's when we really start to kind of tweak and add some different sounds and instruments. We've played the songs enough that we've arranged them, but it's that fine tuning.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always nice to have an external person. We'll send it off for kind of a low cost mix and master initially, and get feedback from the initial person. Take that feedback, listen to it with a what you call a cheaper mix. It still sounds good for a few weeks, and see how we feel about it. And then if we think that everything is the way we want it, then we'll send those stems off and spend a lot more money on a much better, higher quality mixing and mastering process. And it's worth it. The extra, maybe 10 or 20 times more to do it the right way, but the sound quality it's worth it, and that's not something I can do and spend time with doing. So
yeah,
we can do.
I hear you. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. If you hear stuff that's been, it is crazy how well people can make music in their basement and make it sound. I mean, it's absolutely insane today compared to 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. It wasn't possible 40 years ago. And now it is. All you just need is a laptop and an interface, and you can record anything you want. But the proof is in the pudding. If you send it out somewhere and get it fine-tuned by somebody else. We had recorded a 3-Finger Betty album and got it mixed locally but mastered. We sent it out to get mastered, and it really made the whole album feel like more of an album. It evened everything out and put everything on the same plane, I guess would be a good way to kind of say it. It's tough to describe the mixing and mastering process to people that haven't been through it, and it is one of those things. But you guys were talking about how you recorded an album in the late 90s and didn't release it, and you guys have been recording rough tracks or raw tracks, I guess I would call them, to kind of gauge where you guys are at with specific songs or how you sound and ways you can improve yourself. And you're recording stuff now. Do you have plans to eventually release like an EP or a 3-song type thing, or a couple singles, or a full album anytime soon?
Actually, we have our
first official release coming out on 7/1. It'll just be a single.
Oh, cool.
Then we just finished. We have a second song that's done and ready. And I think that's just kind of the approach we're taking, is just kind of song by song. And then kind of once we get to that, 5-song mark, give or take, put out an EP. And then once we get to that 8 to 12 song mark, make an actual album out of it.
That's more of a kind of a constant flow, that constant release. We, like I said, we've been doing it and we record it, but we don't record anything at studio quality. That's what we've been really bad about that. We have 1,000 copies of 1,000 recordings of a song, but it's all crap, and it was never intended that. It was just for us to listen and practice to. And just recently we've said, you know what, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it. The album that we did in 98. Yeah. I mean, it's just, in fact, we can't even find a copy of it. Now I have the original DAT tape, but who the hell has a DAT player? But we do have that. So, but yeah, and what our idea is just to kind of go every 3 or 4 months, have a release. Once we get enough, do it as an album, and someone can, sell CDs that way or whatnot if we wanted to, or however that works. But it's something, this whole process of not just being 3 guys getting together, barbecuing, getting drunk, and playing 3 or 4 shows a year at some local place. That whole process is a little bit newer for us. It's always been a real strictly hobby thing, and we've taken it a little more seriously in the last few years. Yeah. And so that's why we're kind of behind the 8 ball, or we're behind, and not behind the 8 ball, but behind that in that process, and we're trying to get caught up in it.
And we suck with social media.
Yeah, we don't like social media. We're too old.
I wouldn't say you guys are behind at all on any of this. I mean, there's bands that have been out there. I guess you guys have been out there 30 years almost, but there's been bands that have been out there for so long they don't have any recordings anywhere available online. There's nothing wrong with that. Some of that is the best part about that is you have to go see it live in order to go enjoy it. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like putting too much material out there kind of robs everybody of the experience of seeing you live, and it doesn't do as good of justice, I guess. I used to video record 3 Finger Betty sets every few months and put them up online. And then after a while, it was just there's 25 3 Finger Betty sets live online. Why would anybody ever want to go see us live, And so, I've curated them down and I've moved them around on different social media platforms and put them up and taken them down so people, could watch them, and now they can't. And, you got to go see us live to enjoy it. But there is something to be said also about recording one song at a time and putting it out there as a constant stream, like you said, because would you rather have your fans wait a year and a half to have a whole album, or would you rather just give them a song every month? In today's the way everything goes today, it's a whole season of something gets released, on Netflix or whatever, but it's always a constant stream of things getting released, whether or not it's one show or another show. And it seems like every week there's something new to watch or something new to listen to. And so by releasing songs one by one, you might actually be doing yourself a service where it's dude, new song out this month. What do you think? And then by the time everyone's, I don't want to say tired of hearing it, but once the newness is kind of worn off, you're like, well, don't slow down yet. We got another song coming out, and it's just going to it's going to be one right after the other. And that's not a bad way of going about doing it, honestly, I don't think.
Yeah. And the good thing is we have a pretty big library of our own songs. So as we're building those up and, slowly releasing them, getting them recorded, we're also working on new stuff. So we're starting with an inventory to allow us to work on new stuff. So when that runs out, we're going to be ready for the next batch.
So we should be able to do this for quite a while.
Yeah.
We've got, 16, 20 songs that we could, something like that we could record now. Some of them we'd have to brush up a little bit on, but we could play them live. And so, so we've got enough to where if we spread it out, we can kind of do that. Like I said, it keeps activity going. It kind of keeps things moving. And a lot of people, they buy an album and how long would it take us to make another album? It take a while because we don't get to practice constantly. And you buy a whole album, and a lot of times people only listen to 1 or 2 songs anyway. So it just seemed like a good approach to go, especially when you work as slowly as we work. When everybody's got jobs and you guys have families and all that kind of stuff. Everything's slow. So
Yeah, I mean, but it's I don't know. I like to think about this as a good thing, like generally speaking, because it just feels like it feels like it goes along with the narrative of what's going on, like with the way content comes out today. I for a while it was like weird to me to see there's like a couple punk bands that have been releasing new EPs like at least every year, and it's like how do you do that? And it's like, well, they're only keying in on like 5-6 songs tops, and if you only key in on like 5 or 6 songs, you can get them recorded, mixed, mastered pretty quickly. It's the process is shorter for the person recording, the process is shorter for the person mixing and mastering and everything. You don't have to sit down for 3-4 weekends in a row to hammer out 12 songs. You can do it all in one weekend or maybe two, or through the course of a week. So I mean, you're putting out content faster than normal is what's going to happen, and that's going to be good. It's going to be less content. You're not putting out 12 song albums every month, but at the same rate you're still going to have that constant stream, and I think that's going to be very beneficial for you guys. So I'm really excited to hear what that sounds like, because like I said, I'm fairly certain I saw you once with Tyrant Souls, and that was at Lefties, and if I'm not mistaken, and if I was at that show, I very much enjoyed it, because when I saw some of your stuff on YouTube, I was like, this sounds so familiar, like I've seen it before or heard it before. So, I'm really excited to hear what it sounds like when it comes out the other end of the recording process. That's going to be really cool for you guys.
Yeah, I think that was the Texas Hippie Coalition show, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was at that
Yep.
show.
That was a fun show.
Yes, that was the show I saw you guys at. Oh man.
Yep.
That was actually a really, really, really good show. Tons of people there. Every band on that show killed it. I stayed for about half of Texas Hippie Coalition's set and left. No offense to them. I've seen them a handful of times at other shows. But, I had went to go see some local bands there. Tyrant Souls invited me and comped my ticket. And that was their gift to me for doing the podcast with them. Speaking of which, thanks for the gear. I really appreciate it, you guys, for sending me some goodies. I'll have some in the mail for you guys for doing the podcast. It's one of those things. I feel like there's a resurgence of bands starting to really support each other in the local scene right now, and it's going really good as far as I can tell. I mean, I'm doing the podcast and talking to everybody, and I'm learning that every band has a handful of other like buddy bands that they like to hang out with, and everyone's kind of pumping each other up. And that's honestly what our scene needs, is a whole bunch of bands playing awesome music. And then when everyone says your music's awesome, and you're like, you think we're awesome, check out these guys, and that's one of the coolest things, being able to see bands even of complementary styles. Like I said, I went to go see Tyrant Souls and got to see you guys play too. And it was like, this is cool music, because it's not what I would write, which is one of the reasons that it's so intriguing to me, is it's not something that would come out of me normally. So, I mean, I could play cover tunes till Who Laid the Rail, but your guys' music is different than mine, which makes it that much more interesting to me to go see, because it's, like I said, it's not something that my thought process would have came up with. So it's really intriguing.
That's what's been fun about playing up here versus down home, is that we're getting exposed to these local bands that are nothing like us. There's been some pretty heavy metal bands that have been on these bills that you wouldn't really expect to be on. Like I think our first show was Black Moods and Them Evils.
Mm-hmm.
And there's Fret Not out of Cedar Rapids.
All right.
And they were, they're heavy. It's not a band you expect to see on the bill, but it's nice to hear just these other bands and other genres on the same bill, almost like being at a festival,
Yeah. I mean, as deep as the pool of bands in Iowa is, it's not always easy to stack bands that are, well enough alike into the same show. But even then, like, I'm sure everyone's been to big shows where it's like, you got a hair metal band opening up for a thrash metal band or something, and it's like, what's up with this? And they're not the same band, but it's close enough, and it actually works out really well. I guess a good example I could think of, I went and saw the Scorpions once, and Cinderella opened up for them, and it's like, these aren't the same styles of music, but it still fit for some reason, and it worked out really well, and it was a killer show because I like both bands. But that's also one of the funnest things about playing tunes, going out and playing tunes. I don't know why. When I first started playing music, I started out weirdly nervous about seeing other bands because I'm super picky about what I like. But then when I started trying to figure out, like I always watch the bands and I try to figure out what's going on and how they got to where they're at and how their sound is their sound and what exactly they're doing that makes it what it is. And it's always intrigued me because, like I said, it's a lot of the stuff I get to hear and see is not stuff that I would normally write myself or turn on or listen to. And it gives me the availability to say, oh, that's actually possible because someone else is doing it. And maybe I could try something kind of like what they're doing, and it's like, it's inspirational. It's almost like a little bit of a competition, but it's not, it's like a friendly competition.
Yeah, I mean, it is it kind of is because you want to, everybody wants to go out there and kill it. Everybody wants to, to do the best they can to be the best band in the band that shines. That's part of just human nature for everyone to do that. And I think one thing that, you talk about going to these local shows and whatnot. It's interesting to see and hear these bands. And I think what makes it, for me, when I listen to them, I think what makes it interesting to me is the fact that these people wrote this music and they came up with this sound and no one else did. It wasn't produced. It wasn't bought from somebody else. It wasn't, they go through a catalog and select these lyrics in the song out and then just have some hire a band. Like some of the stuff that you hear that's mainstream.
Yeah.
Not all of it, some of it. Some of the more common stuff is sort of done that way. And, we can't do that. We don't have the resources to do that. And I wouldn't want to do that anyway. I mean, it's not part of how I would want to do it. But anyway, I guess it's interesting because this is raw style. This is raw talent and raw skill. And this is what this person, made and created. I think that's what interests me about it.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, and this isn't a stab at any of the popular music that's out there, but it's a lot of it seems to be not necessarily written by whoever is singing it. Good, that's good or bad, whatever. That's not my style. I'm not gonna be like boo, because quite obviously, it's still good music. But at the same rate, like we don't have huge studios full of session musicians to bounce ideas off of, or multi-$1,000 engineers to, we'll just tune it up this way and it'll sound different because that'll get the best tones coming out of blah blah this, that, and the other. This is all grassroots campaign, rock and roll, if you will. It's literally like you guys said. Everybody's got their own influence. We combined it. This is what it sounds like, and it's original. Nobody helped us write this. This is just what we came up with in our downtime, and that's really cool to be able to go up on stage and be like, these three people wrote that. Like these three people together wrote that, all by themselves. Nobody else was just like, change the lyrics to this, or like we wrote this tune and then somebody came up and I'm a wordsmith. Here's the words you should sing to it. It wasn't any of that. None of that goes on in the local scene, even at all.
Right.
It's brilliant.
I like that, what you said there, that grassroots rock and roll, because that's really what we are, and that's what we've experienced from playing with these other local bands. That, they're just, there's not a lot of production behind it. They're just getting up there to, melt some faces and have some fun.
Yeah, definitely. And while we're saying all this, shout out to all the sound guys out there helping us sound good.
The guy is awesome.
What's that?
The guy at Lefties is awesome.
Yeah, there's a few sound guys that I've run across at Lefties, and it always sounds amazing at Lefties. That's one of my favorite things. You can go there and it's just like, do you need us to turn this up anymore? It's like, I don't care. Whatever you guys have sounds great. Like, it's better than us just putting amps on stage and praying like hell that it's balanced.
Right.
Yeah, we've had the same sound person each time we've been there, I think. Yeah. And I think, was Ocean's, that video that I recorded, that's a show that he was at? Was that it? No. That was in January. So we recorded, if you on YouTube, we have a release Oceans, and it's not, it's me drinking a case of beer and trying to figure out how to use software and put some videos together. But the sound comes from, I have a fairly high quality mic on it's a Zoom camera that has a good quality and condenser mics on it, so you get a pretty good sound. But to give you an idea of, or people an idea of how good the sound is there, if you listen to that song, Oceans, that was recorded there, that is totally raw. That is compressor microphone sitting back right in front of his mixing booth there, and I did absolutely nothing to it. I didn't add compression, I didn't EQ it, I did nothing. I just put it up there, and it sounds pretty damn good.
Yeah, I actually at that Texas Hippie Coalition show, I recorded Tyrant Soul's set, and I'm almost embarrassed to let the secret out, but I recorded it with an iPhone, and I had a raw audio recording of it as well, because I bring like a little portable recorder with me, and I usually compare the two, and ironically enough, what came off the iPhone was better than the recorder. The recorder was so I don't know what the word is. It picked up everything. It picked up people coughing around the corner and stuff like that. So it was almost like too precise. It was like what you would have audible in your ears if you were standing there and somebody next to you is coughing. You would have totally heard it. But with the iPhone, it sounded really great. And like we all said, that's a testament to how good sound guys can do. As far as that's how good it sounds with just a raw microphone. And that's really cool. Like the Oceans video at Lefties was one of the first ones on your YouTube channel I checked out when I checked out your tunes, and yeah, it sounds great, man. It sounds really, really good. I mean, you don't have a static address for the YouTube channel, but I'm going to put links to it down below, as well as your Instagram and your Facebook and even your website, because you guys have a website, and it's that's something else that's pretty cool, is you guys have a website for a band. Not every band has a website. Some of them just rely on social media and call it good, but you guys actually have a website, 9yearsgone.com.
Yeah, it's all new to us. And we'll have when we release our first song, Freight Train, it'll be on Spotify, Apple, basically everything that you can get music from.
That's sweet.
So,
you're going to have to let me know when that comes out, because I'm going to be pretty stoked to hear it. If anybody wants to get a hold of you to book shows, because shows are starting to book again, like if anyone wants to contact you, what's the best way? Do you have an email that people should email you, or just send you a message on Facebook, or maybe go to your website and scroll down to the bottom to that little drop us a line link?
Yeah, there's also a bookings on the website. It's 9yearsgone97@gmail.com.
All right.
Facebook Messenger works. Instagram DM works.
Oh man,
Any of them?
I'm the worst at checking my Instagram DMs. I know I hope whoever I've been leaving hanging on there isn't upset at me, because I mean, I'll get on there every now and then. It's like, you got 5 messages, and it's like, oh crap, and I'm really good at keeping up with most of them, but that's, for some reason, the Instagram messages always passes me by. So good on you guys for at least checking yours. But yeah, I got your Instagram is 9yearsgone97. That's your Instagram handle. But like I said, if anybody wants to check out anything these guys are doing, I'm going to put links to everything down below. So give them a follow on Facebook, subscribe to their YouTube channel, follow them on Instagram as well. Check out their website, shoot them links for booking, let them know you want them there, because I'll tell you what, it's some pretty good tunes. And I feel like we've covered a lot of ground here. I mean, we're already an hour in. Is there anything I'm like ridiculously missing in this story that we've covered so far?
I think as far as shows go, like I said, you've already mentioned the Flotsam show. That's the only thing we got booked now. More recordings coming.
And I'm sure we'll have some bookings soon. We just haven't really. There's been some discussions with some shows that we've had some opportunities for, but we're not really sure what's going on with them yet. So we're kind of holding off. But we'll start booking shows before long and be up here in Des Moines. We try to play up here a couple months at least.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Yeah. So anybody in the Des Moines area listening, well worth checking out 9 Years Gone. If they're on a bill somewhere and you can get to the show, it's worth checking out. I promise you. If you're on the show with them, haul your gear out to your car real quick and get back in there and watch them, because it's going to be worth it. You guys, like I said, you guys are one of those bands when I saw, I was pleasantly surprised, because it was like, there's not very many what I would just call rock bands out there anymore, and you guys are doing it, and you're killing it. And I really dig it.
Thank you. I
appreciate that.
Absolutely. Joe, Clint, I want to say thanks for sitting down with me. And I mean, unfortunately, we couldn't bring Jeff into the mix because we're doing this over a Skype interview, and he's not local to you guys. But shout out to Jeff for being who he is and being in the band. He's the only guy that we didn't talk to today. So hopefully, maybe someday I'll get to talk to Jeff.
We didn't say anything bad about it, did we? I can't remember.
No, I don't think it was bad. No. Dude, you guys are great. I want to say thanks. Stick around. I'm gonna end the recording here, but thank you guys very much.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, that's another fun one. Just based on the fact that I've never met these guys before, even though I have seen them play live, but I've never met them face to face. And doing interviews with two people is kind of difficult, but it's kind of fun because it gives you two different avenues. You get two different sets of stories, even though they coincide with one another. But it gives you the availability to hear where both of these guys came from in their collective journey to meet up with one another and make a band. And how I can't believe these guys have been doing this since the 90s. And not only that, but they played their first show when they were in junior high, which is mind blowing to me. I mean, I think the first show I played, I was maybe a freshman or sophomore in high school, but it wasn't the greatest thing that ever happened or whatever. Not that anybody's first show ever really is super great, but shout out to these guys. Been grinding for a while, and we like I said, we deciphered that I had seen them before. And I recall, and it was one of those things where I was like, I know I've seen these guys, and I have seen them, and they're good. So if you guys like rock and roll, anything that leans towards the grunge area or even harder rock and roll, if you're a fan of classic rock, new rock, you'll love what these guys got going on. So I highly suggest you guys check them out. Like we discussed in the podcast, there are recordings coming up. So they're probably going to end up putting out single after single here before too long. So keep an eye on them. Go to their Facebook page, scroll down to the bottom, give them all your likes and follows, and give them a thumbs up. Tell them Audible Farm sent you. Heck of a band. I like these guys. Down from the southwestern Iowa area, which is pretty cool because I don't get down that direction to watch shows too much. And so it's really neat that they travel up towards the Des Moines area a little bit closer to me so I can actually, get to see them live. So shout out to Joe and Clint for doing the podcast. You guys are great. Had a fun time sitting down talking with you. And like I said, go check out I put links down below in the description section of wherever you're listening to this. You can find it. So check it out. Check out their band. Give them the likes and follows. And be prepared for those new singles that are going to be slowly trickling their way out. I'm assuming here in 2020 before too long. So check it out. It's going to be pretty sweet. I'm pretty stoked for it. I'm stoked for them, and I can't wait to hear it. There's nothing better than having one of those nice, hard copied, polished songs that you can actually listen to. I mean, the live recordings on their YouTube page actually do pretty good justice, just based on the fact that a lot of their live recordings came from lefties, and the sound there is pretty impeccable almost every single time I've been there. So shout out to lefties for having good sound, and check these guys out. Like I said, they're a fun band. Their genre that they play is not necessarily what you would always hear. It seems like the scene is dominated by metal bands that are very heavy and punk bands that I don't want to say aren't heavy, but it's this weird dichotomy that you see a lot of these two styles in the Des Moines area. And I mean, maybe that's just based on the fact that I play in a punk band and a metal band, so those are the two that I see the most. Because I know there are other bands out there, but it's refreshing to see rock bands out there, bands that can transcend. Not they can lean into the metal genre if they want. Heck, they could play with a punk band if they want. And it's kind of cool because you get the availability to play as many different styles, play with different bands, and see different people. Just like we discussed in this podcast. It's kind of refreshing. And the music scene is so deep. We're almost 100 episodes in, and I don't feel like I've even scratched the surface. So, I got to say, shout out to everybody listening. Like I said, almost 100 episodes. I can't believe I've done almost 100, which is pretty wild. So if you guys like what we got going on here, go to audiblefarm.com. Give us the like, follow, subscribe. There's links to everything there. You can also listen to the podcast there. There are even shirts and sweatshirts available for purchase. There's a link on the Audible Farm site. And if you want to buy a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, go for it. You can just contact us through the contact link there, or you can shoot us a Facebook message. I kind of came out and said in this podcast that I'm not the best at checking my Instagram messages. Sorry. But Facebook messages will work great. I check those all the time. Otherwise, send us an email, and we'll check that out too. So, hey, if you want a t-shirt or a sweatshirt or anything like that, we've got you covered. Otherwise, I want to say thanks to these guys for sitting down talking with me. Joe and Clint, you were great guests. And check out 9 Years Gone. They sent me a swag bag that had a t-shirt and some other stuff from their band. I actually got a couple t-shirts. And, it's really sweet. I think it's one of the coolest things ever that bands, are so receptive to this idea. If you guys want to be on the podcast, you don't have to send me anything. You don't have to bribe me, quote unquote, to be on the podcast at all. Not that that's what these guys did, but I just wanted to say that, just generally speaking, you don't have to do anything. I'll just contact me and say you like the podcast, and for the most part, I'll check out your music and try my best to put you on. Schedules have been a little weird here and there, but we'll get it all worked out. I promise. So thanks to those guys for doing on the podcast with me. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks to Couchtown for sponsoring yet another episode. My favorite coffee. Check them out, couchtowncoffee.com. And I'll be back next week with another episode. Peace.